Guess what? It was my old babysitter at my table that I hadn't seen since I was 10.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order, May the 10th, for the Ways and Means. And let's start with the pledge. It's on.
It wasn't big.
Pledge allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for attending today. Welcome. Connie, do you have any changes for the agenda?
No, sir. Support.
Ossenheiser? Barbara? Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have two sets of minutes.
Move them both.
Ossenheiser, DeRosa? Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Terrence. First of two times for limited public comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good
Morning.
I'm Judy Ash. For all of you that don't know, I'm a newly retired employee from Eaton County. And I'm just here to check the status on the employee cost share for health insurance. I know when it was presented, there was they had anticipated a 32% savings, but there turned out to be a 66% savings. So I'm asking that you either eliminate the cost sharing or cap it at the max of 200. Thank you.
Okay, there was a letter. Jim, were you going to read? We're going to do it. Yeah.
Did you want to just wait until we get to the?
Well, that's my question.
Yeah, I think we're gonna wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna wait.
Tell us the time we're talking about it. Okay. That's fine. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Yes.
Is the podium microphone on? Because it was hard to hear her.
Didn't sound like she was speaking in it.
Should be on. Andrew, you would hit that? Just had it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Vandermark.
Is that it?
I heard you, Judy.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you meant.
Equalization update. Tim? Speak into the microphone, please.
Good morning.
Hola.
It's that time of year. We got a lot of reports going on for state reports. So I want to thank my staff for helping compile this information. We have some good news. Taxable values this year went up the highest in about 20 years. So now we're at $4,821,000 or $821,905,506. That increase equaled 7.58% versus a 6.51% increase. And now, as you can see on my report, the spread between taxable and SEV is 31.7%. So that's pretty substantial spread like we talked about in the previous month.
Tim, historically, what was that spread? You just ballpark, is it widening or is it?
Yeah, it's
narrow?
widening every year since the market's been so strong. So that has been widening. I think at one time it was only like 20% on the spread, so it's moved substantially.
And if there's, if there's a lot of turnover in the county, let's say with a lot of sales, then that would narrow the margin.
Yeah, you see the spread tends to be bigger on the agricultural properties, generally speaking, so the rural parts of the county have wider spreads than the more developed parts as far as like Delta Township and,
A lot less turnover.
because there's a lot less turnover. Typically, when we're looking at deeds, I would say probably about half our sales in the county are in Delta Township, so we do see a lot of turnover there.
Okay.
Not only from like residential, commercial, industrial, and so on and so forth. So it does make a big difference.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Mr. Vandermark.
Thank you. 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 T And then moving on to the Headley rollback numbers, kind of shows you how much the new construction's been going up. Keep in mind, those numbers do not equal what the actual taxable value is on the reports. They go to the state, because there is certain type of properties that have to be deducted in the Headley rollback calculations. You have to subtract some of the senior citizen stuff, that are exempt from some taxes, some of the MISTA properties, so those numbers are not exactly the same. As you can see, we do have to subtract out the Renaissance zone for the battery plant in our calculations. So that does create quite a bit more work when we're putting this stuff together. We had 1.000 for the Headley rollback for the county. That was real close to having a Headley rollback by a few decimal points. Helped partially, I think, probably because of the large inflationary increase. There was a 5.1% increase on the consumer price index. But most of the townships, you can see, did have rollbacks. Bellevue Township avoided it. Benton Township was at 0.9961, Brookfield 0.9805, Carmel is at 0.9943, Chester Township was at 0.9942. Delta did not have a Headley rollback because of some of the new construction that they had. So that's helpful because that's a large percentage of the tax base, obviously. We get into some of the cities. Charlotte had a 0.9964. Eaton Rapid City was 0.9907. Grand Ledge avoided a Headley rollback this year, as well as the city of Olivet. And then Potterville was at 0.9854. So we calculate that for the villages, the townships, the cities, all the district libraries. And there are quite a few to calculate. Some of the newer libraries, if you're not aware, Windsor has a library district now, as well as Eaton Rapids area has a library district as well that started a few years ago. Looking at the non-homestead, most of them avoided a Headley rollback except for Maple Valley schools and Potterville schools. The Potterville area had pretty good sized rollback this year. Bellevue schools, Olivet was a 1. Waverly was a 1 this year. And then the all properties as well. And then the battery plant Renaissance zone also affects Grand Ledge schools. So you have to do a subtraction on that as well. Is there any questions on this particular report?
Commissioner Augustine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Tim, just real quick on the rollbacks. So when you say, for instance, Benton Township had a rollback of 0.9961, that's not the millage rate now, that's the additional. So if they were already rolled back, that's on top of that, or is that 0.99 their actual rate now?
That's the reduction.
The reduction, okay, that's what I
reduction
thought.
from last year, so it's continuing to go down.
Because most of the townships have already had a rollback, and so this is just a further reduction in their tax, in the
That's
amount.
correct, by
Okay.
that percentage.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions about this? The 4028?
So these
Went on
two
to the full
reports need to be moved to the full board, obviously.
Yep.
I would move them.
Support.
Okay. Augustine, Lassenheiser, move to the full board. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Jeannie?
I would like to thank Mr. Vandermark for being so helpful to explain several things in this report because of the widening of the spread and the difference in the Renaissance zones, recapture, and things like that. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that capture at the battery plant's a big one. I guess we could have you speak to captures, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that next month, actually. I've been working on that as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, Mr. Dawson, we're looking at human resources.
All right, so to start us off, we'll actually ask Andrea Cherwinski, our benefits specialist, to speak to EAP usage.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just a little refresher on what our employee assistance program is. It provides our employees with 5 free counseling sessions per year for them and anyone in their household, doesn't have to be a family member. They also do group counseling sessions here on site for any of our employees if we have something high risk happen that causes some stress. We also have wellness coaching that's available for them where they can get actual nutritional help and exercise assistance. And they do concierge services where employees can reach out for help with scheduling appointments or trips even. This is our utilization report for 2023. The total number of separate occurrences for 2023 was 29. This includes both group sessions and individual sessions for counseling. Total employees serviced were 123. We had a very large number last year. They were very helpful, especially with our Michigan State situation with helping to brief our emergency response teams. Activities recorded were 142. This includes portal visits and utilization along with counseling sessions. So people that go on there to use like nutrition coaching and stuff can be done online. All in all, the utilization has been really good and this has been really well received by our employees and we look forward to continuing to offer it for them in the future.
Andrea, how are you reaching out to the employees to let them know that this service is available?
Actually, at our health fair, we have had that twice now. Encompass has been there talking to them. During onboarding, I actually provide the employees with a flyer on this service. And I tend to get monthly updates from Encompass with little service pamphlets, and I try to send those out to employees every month when I receive them as well.
Okay. This is like an excellent benefit that I think people, you know, as they struggle through their lives and they're looking for a little assistance, this is a good opportunity to get a little coaching or help with direction and whatever.
Yeah, they help with a lot of things, if financial situations. I get a full, really thick utilization report. If somebody's going through a divorce, they will help them with that too. So it is really a great program.
Okay, Terrence?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Andrew, just a quick question. You just mentioned, I think you may have just answered my question. You get reports on what, not necessarily who, and I don't care who is utilizing it because we want to respect our employees' privacy, but what our employees are utilizing
Yes.
in this program, so you know if there's a certain part of the program that maybe they're utilizing more. Obviously, that may give us direction on, hey, this is a problem for our employees, or this is something that they deal with, so if there's anything that we can do to help deal with that internally then. Is that fair to say?
Yes, very fair to say. It even tells me if it's a workplace stress counseling.
Right,
It just
okay.
doesn't tell me what department or who they are.
Sure, yeah, and we wouldn't want to know that, but I think just the general overall understanding, just understanding where our employees are at, I think is important, and this is a way for us to do that without invading their privacy too. So,
Definitely. If I have employees come to me that say they're experiencing something, I always give them the information and encourage them to utilize it. It
Okay.
really is a great service.
yeah, great, thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, now it's positions update.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Always been.
Excellent. I aim to project. So we filled 13 positions this month. We have 17 positions posted online. 8 of them are ongoing requisitions with the Sheriff's Office, Youth Facility, and seasonal hiring with Parks and Rec. There are 8 positions we're recommending today due to people either being promoted, resigning, or retiring. Sheriff Department update. The corrections deputy, jail is fully staffed, but they will likely have one resignation upcoming, but they have somebody who's already applied and is in background, so they'll likely have no issue filling that. Jail, we're still struggling with EMT vacancies, so we're still that same thing where if it's a position that has specific qualifications or education requirements, those are some of the ones we have a harder time filling currently. So we have a candidate in background, and we've had a few, but typically either the background eliminates them, they pull out, but we have somebody in background right now and continue to work to attract, retain employees with EMT qualifications. For road patrol, there are currently 9 deputy openings and 1 command officer vacancy, so that's a total of down 10 members, which is an improvement from where we have been in previous months. We do know that we have likely a retirement coming at the end of May and another deputy who's in process of leaving. So every time we make a little bit of progress through retirements and attrition, we're still kind of finding that we hover around that 12 mark. Last month, we had 3 of our field training candidates complete their FTO, so they are now able to provide full coverage and be on their own, which is great, but that's helped stem the effect of retirements in previous reports I've given. We have another 3 of our sponsorship candidates that recently graduated the academy, which is great. There were 4 in that group. 1 wasn't able to make it out of LCC's program, but we have 75% completion rate with the candidates in that class, so that's good. And then we have 1 more FTO still in training that should complete in the end of June. And again, that would mean they would be able to patrol on their own and provide better and more full public safety coverage. So of the 4 deputies in field training, they are counted in our staffing numbers. So from the perspective of how many officers can go out and patrol, we are working from the perspective that we're down 14 spots when it comes to meeting the demand for public safety. And again, that number can prove to be higher if you consider anyone who's on approved leave or at assignment at courthouse security. Future outlook above what we've already talked about, we do know we have 4 other people that will qualify for retirement later in the year. So as you think of the pipeline and people in the academy and in field training, those are positions that we'll have to fill via that route. And we anticipate, as is typically the trend, once somebody qualifies for retirement, it's pretty rare for them to stay on past that date. A lot of times they will just take their retirement at the earliest moment. Law enforcement labor market, we've talked about this previously, but we have to do criminal history, background investigations, and physical requirements. And so once we funnel candidates through that process, the number that are still eligible to get sponsorship to the academy is lower. As we've had issues with recruitment and retention efforts, it's not just us. This is a national and a Michigan-wide issue. One of the reasons you all authorized us to early bargain, and I'm happy to say that that has given the Sheriff's Department a lot of edge in being able to recruit recently. So I think I reported last time, but we have enough candidates that they're able to actually tier out their top picks and kind of work through that vetted list. So that's a positive update. As of now, we have 2 candidates that are currently in the academy right now. One will be graduating end of May, and they'll go into field training, and the other would be in September. And then we have 8 that are in the wings, with a possible other 2 that are in early background stages as well. So for the academy at LCC in August, we're looking to hopefully have 5 to 8 people in that academy push. And so, again, if we could get 75% completion, that kind of gives you an idea of what that will mean for staffing progress. And this is the process we have to go through unless we're able to attract somebody who's already certified in the state of Michigan, MCL certified to practice law enforcement. Does anybody have any questions on that part before I move on? Okay. Position development reclassification request updates. So we're in the process of developing a job description for an accountant in the drain office, and that should be something we bring up in June. We're also evaluating received reclassification requests that we've had. So the goal for us is to be able to get those to the outside consultant and have them in June like we discussed previously. But we'll say we've had a number of time-sensitive projects and situations arise that we're endeavoring to address, but it definitely puts pressure on our office to process all those requests. But our goal is still to get it to you by June. And have that as part of the budget process for you all to evaluate then. So of this report, there are 8 positions that we're asking to be authorized.
Move that we approve the request for authorization.
Support.
Moved by Brailer, supported by Augustine. Questions or comments? I guess my comment is keep up the good work. It's good to see some people getting into the pipeline.
Yeah.
Because there was a time there where the input was almost zero, and now we've got a little bit of action.
Yeah, like a trickle of 1 to 2 at a time. And the other thing that's been great is the sheriff's office has been stepping up and trying new things. So they're using a new platform called Handshake, which has increased their ability to make connections with college grads. It's kind of like the new platform. It's like the LinkedIn for colleges, so they're kind of pushing everybody into that. And so I tip my hat to the sheriff's office for getting in there and using that as a good way to engage with people who are pursuing a criminal justice background, so,
Super.
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to ask Ben a question. Oh, okay. So it deals with personnel, but I shared it on my Facebook page that Mason was taking applications for the paid EMT program. I know that we're having a hard time with the EMT positions at the jail. Do we have any way to push that out someplace to draw in candidates and maybe send them to that 10-week training?
That's a good question. I could definitely engage the sheriff's office and ask them. We're building that out with our paramedic program that we're in the process of building. And then we offer that kind of sponsorship with the academy, and I think Connie
Okay.
wants to share too.
I just want to mention that we just had a meeting with Sparrow Hospital. The sheriff, under sheriff, and I met with them, and they also have an EMT program and offered the same to the sheriff. So he'll be working there. That was a great meeting, really positive, and some good things to come with respect to the paramedic program.
Okay, thank you. I know it's been a difficult position to fill down there. Thanks.
Yeah, and Connie had shared the hospital was just talking about difficulty with retaining and recruiting themselves with EMTs, nurses, and again, it's just, I think, the reality that we're going to have to
Labor.
face in the U.S. is that if there's a position that has an education requirement, a license requirement, that those will be harder and harder to come by in the decades to come.
And Jeannie, to clarify, when you say Mason, you meant Ingham County, their EMT position?
Yes, it just happened to pop up, so
Okay,
since they were looking and my friend lives there, I thought I'd help out.
okay. Great, those are difficult positions. And I'm glad to partner with Sparrow, U of M. Okay. Next, we have bargaining.
Yeah, so before you is a resolution to approve entering into early bargaining with the youth facility. We've had a number of discussions about this. The recommendation comes from the Financial Stability Work Group and Controller's Office. Primarily, 3 reasons we're looking to do this. This was one of the groups we early identified as having persistent recruitment and retention issues. So the turnover and the amount of people we have to hire, it's been a lot. And so we wanted the opportunity to evaluate their overall compensation and structure of this group, not just because of that, but also because we have the expansion coming up. So this would give us the ability to build them up so that we can actually have the facility fully staffed once construction's completed, which I know Chad's probably going to give an update on a little bit. But this is in conjunction with being able to meet the service demands that will be represented there.
Support.
Moved by Latzenheiser, supported by DeRosa. Okay, and Jeremy's not here because he has to work, right?
He is in support, last I spoke. No?
We had a really good meeting.
We did. We had a meet and greet with the bargaining agent for this group, and they seemed very excited at the prospect of sitting down. And, it's as hard for the union as it is for us having a high turnover because you're constantly trying to find out who's your union president and what are the issues, and so they're excited the ability to be able to engage this group.
Well, there's just as much competition in that area, as, we keep talking about public safety, but other areas in the job market are experiencing the same kind of stresses and competitive situations.
Absolutely.
And this is one of those.
Yeah, and a lot of them for what they're paid, many of them hold bachelor's degrees, sometimes master's degrees, and it's almost an onboarding spot into social work sometimes, but we'd like to create it a little bit more where people could see themselves working in the facility for a longer duration.
And ultimately, we're a good workplace, and we want to introduce people to that and try to get them to have a career here, The county as being a training area, it doesn't serve anyone, We end up doing all the onboarding and the training, and off they go. And if we can get someone actually want a career here, we're going to be far ahead, so.
And I have two other things that weren't on the agenda. but-
Motion's on the floor. All in favor? Opposed?
Way to take charge there, Mr. Chairman.
Cut him, someone turn off that mic. I just,
Much for your ability to project.
So I just wanted to note that all of our labor agreements expired this year. We've early bargained the 2 sheriff contracts, and moving into early bargaining with this will help with the budget process, because when you have all your contracts open, it's kind of difficult to forecast, especially when you have as many union contracts as we do. So I would note that starting in June, we can expect letters from the other groups, because from June to September will be when traditional bargaining takes place. So just wanted to note that. And then one other piece I wanted to mention is Medicare Advantage update. We've sent pre-enrollment packets, Blue Cross Blue Shield House, out to all of our retiree health members that are currently on the plan. We're going to be hosting a meeting here on May 30th, 2024. That's a Thursday from 1:30 to 3:30, so folks can bring their pre-enrollment kits, and if they have any questions, it'll be structured very similar to the meetings we did prior when we were evaluating the transition to Medicare Advantage. We will be sending a letter out hopefully by Monday, so that way retirees will get that. But we're already getting calls and people are very engaged, so just want to make sure everybody knows we're moving there.
Okay. Okay, does that conclude your report?
It does.
Thank you. Ms. Ballard, Finance.
So I will start with our corrective action plan update for the audit. We have continued discussions with the consultant from Greg's Consulting, and he had some follow-up questions, so he will have a proposal to us in the next 2 weeks. So looking forward to hearing that. Is there any questions on that? Okay.
Who was doing?
Greg Guchow. So,
What? He's our local consultant.
he is a local consultant, and he specializes in municipal finances.
Okay.
I was gonna say, should we just kind of, should we all just kind of veer over here and get all the information as opposed to the little dribs and drabs?
Work in Eaton Rapids? Okay. Okay, that's fine. It's good to have a consultant and a third party that really understands what's necessary.
Yes,
We can't be experts in all things.
exactly. So then I also have included for you an update on our American Rescue Plan Act funds. This is as of March 31st. We had to do a quarterly report, so I figured that was a good time to update the committee on where our spending has been. We do have several projects that are completed to the point where we can no longer spend the funds that have been allocated. So for COVID testing, our prevention, personal protective equipment. So those funds can and should be reallocated at some point. So we are hoping to reallocate that to the drain infrastructure project for the Bank Intercounty drain to help offset some of the expenses for that.
Should we talk about that at all? Is it too early?
I think it's probably a little bit too early. Melissa wanted to make sure that you had a good understanding of where we're at financially. Some of the funds definitely were allocated. We will not spend them in those allocations. So therefore, those we could roll over at any time. You may want to do that. But the other allocation that was for broadband, even though we've made some determinations that we wouldn't need those funds due to federal funding, we still would look at rolling those over. But not knowing what's going to happen as far as any other federal funds that may come in, we were kind of thinking on holding off on the 2.6 million.
That's fine. Commissioner Pearlwright?
I have a question as far as when you talk about rolling it over from the prevention, from the testing and things. Didn't we have to tell the federal government how we were going to spend it?
We have to make a determination on that as of December of this year. So we have to have a final determination as of that time. So we have allocated all of our funds. This has been done, and it's been done for almost a year now. However, these funds are not going to be spent on these projects that they've been allocated for. So we can actually reallocate it, but it does take action of the board to reallocate those funds.
So we don't have to go back to the federal government and file something to be able to switch certain type of usage of those funds?
Correct. We do not need to go to the federal government. We just need to have an action of the board to
Then
reallocate.
would go on your report. It goes on a quarterly report that Melissa files.
Okay, thank you.
The allocation has to be to subject of something that was allowed by the federal government. So it's not like we can just allocate it to any darn thing. It has to still be within the parameters that we had in the first place.
Correct. And as far as the bank intercounty drain, we did determine it can be allocated toward that, even if it is a federal match, we can use it. We can also use it in terms of our own infrastructure payment that we would have to make toward that drain. So that's what we'd look to do. That's probably going to be our recommendation in the next 2 months.
And I think if we're not aware, this board is aware that we've got this giant project coming up that's going to require a lot of funding, and it's got to come from somewhere.
And just to be clear, when Chairman Mulder said that it has to be allocated toward a specific project, that means we cannot use this for general fund. We can't cover our general fund costs in any way, shape, or form. So it has to be specific, like it was to broadband. There is any type of water infrastructure, which is what we're looking at. There's something that we could do for housing. So there are specific areas of the plan that it can fall into, but not our general fund.
Thank you.
So if there are any further questions, just let me know. Take me aside afterwards. Happy to talk your ear off about American Rescue Plan Act funds. I also have a request for proposal for our audit. This is for your reference. I'm planning to send this out today, barring any changes that the committee has.
I see it's got 1 month out there. Is that kind of typical? Are the firms looking for these RFPs this time of year? And do you believe that in 1 month we're going to get enough?
I believe 1 month will give plenty of time for response. Many audit firms are looking during this time period, knowing that there's a September 30 fiscal year end.
When I look at the RFP, it seems like it's really complicated. There's a whole list of things that have to be done and have to be accounted for and what we're looking for, but I just assume that the auditing firms look at that list and say it's almost boilerplate to them. To me, it seems like that's a giant lift. Yeah.
Yes, the most of it is boilerplate from other municipalities that have done RFPs recently, so.
Okay, good enough. Commissioner Augustine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Melissa, thank you. I appreciate you for providing the RFP to me in advance to review. I actually am very impressed with this. I think this is a better document than we've ever had. I specifically appreciate the fact that and maybe the other one used to point this out, but I appreciate the fact that it specifically calls out any GASB updates and how much that's going to cost us so that they don't come back and say, oh, we had this GASB update that, we've known about for 10 years, but we didn't put it in our proposal. So I appreciate that. And I think that this is going to be an effective RFP for us. I do have one question. Are we planning to send this to Raymond?
My plan is, yes, to send it to Raymond. However, it depends on scoring. There is actually a scoring methodology that we will talk about, so.
Well, I guess
Scoring doesn't matter because the board makes the decision. on
So,
it.
and that's where I wanted to go. I don't want to put us in a corner to where we have to choose some, because we're looking at moving on to somebody else ideally.
Correct.
I do believe, at least one of us is. So, okay, thank you.
Back you up,
Oh, thanks, I appreciate backup all the time.
Raymond has been our auditors for extensive time, More than 5 years, I think.
12 years.
And good financial responsibility would require that we change auditors occasionally to get different eyes on the same problem. It's always a learning curve. You always get a new auditor in there, and you spend your first year of audit teaching them, instead of them auditing you, you're teaching them what we've got.
Our systems, most of all, you're showing them the system, how they look for items that they need to. And then there's the sharing of information. So we're used to sharing it on where we upload everything to them, and they come back and they give us messages through this portal. So most firms are going in that direction. We did a lot of remote work with Raymond over the last several years. I think most firms are going to do that. So we'll get some competitive quotes on this.
Well, I think it's the best practice that we've probably gone a little longer with Raymond than what,
I will say, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I will say that the one thing the county has done is flipped back between different firms. So we went from having the firm in Jackson, having a firm in Saginaw, so they're branched out. We used Muskegon, and then we went back to Jackson, which was a new group. So we did go back and forth, which is why you get a different set of, that group does things a little bit differently. They all do, so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. You don't need anything from us for the RFP, that's just informational?
Just informational.
Okay.
I also have for you the health insurance report. You will notice it is significantly smaller this month than it has been historically. I included just pertinent information. There is very high expenses. Connie and I are researching doing open position transfers, and I plan to have dollar amounts for that next month for you.
Did work on that, you know.
Okay. Child Care Fund.
Child Care Fund has not changed significantly from last month. We are still projecting a $1.9 million fund balance at end of current fiscal year.
Any questions for finances? Anything else, Melissa?
I have nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Public improvement. Good morning, Chad.
Good morning. So it's been a busy month around here. I'll go through some of the projects and then answer any questions you might have. Last year here at the courthouse, we started our interior finishes. We did the painting, and later this month and moving into next month, we'll be replacing the carpet in the public corridors and waiting areas. So all of the public common areas will be receiving new carpet here shortly. And then as we move through and as budget allows, we'll start picking off some of the suites that need it the worst. Our pond project and landscaping outside, we're getting going on that. You'll start seeing a lot of stuff happening out there. We're kind of waiting on the little goslings to move out. We didn't want to cause a big disturbance with the newly hatched geese there, but so next month, later this month and next month, we'll start seeing progress out there. Our construction codes renovation, the old equalization space that's going to house the resource recovery and community development, veteran services, and construction codes is well underway. They're hanging drywall. They've got their in-wall inspections, so we'll start covering that up and moving through that. Anticipated late June completion, early July. So youth facility expansion is moving along right on target schedule. I was reviewing the schedule that they provided to me last February, and we're hitting the marks right week to week. So the roof is on, all the rooftop air handling units and mechanical equipment is in place. They're working to connect all that stuff, and inside the building, the concrete floors and interior walls are all done, and we're going to start interior painting here next week. So, and we've set a date for a site tour for the commissioners. You'll see a communication coming from Mr. Bailey here directly for Wednesday, June 20th at 5:30. So it's before the June Board of Commissioners meeting. And that's all I have this month. If there's any questions?
Just a second. Didn't we change that meeting to a Thursday?
Juneteenth.
So
Oh, excuse me, it's Thursday.
You're correct.
Okay, so.
I got the day of the week wrong. Thursday, June 20.
Okay, gotcha. You said Wednesday, I heard you.
No, you're right. I'm used to Wednesdays.
How dare you? He was thinking about those goslings that he's got to feed later with his bottle, so.
Emails would have been flying here shortly, trying to figure out what was on our plan.
That's why I leave the communication up to Logan. He'll get that out to you guys.
Yeah, Commissioner Augustine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Chad, how are we doing with change orders and projects still on schedule, it sounds like?
Yeah, we're actually doing really well with some of the funding that we had allocated for some things we're not going to need to spend, so we'll reappropriate those buckets and we'll have.
Good. Still lots of contingency left then to cover anything, and, okay, I assume we're past, I mean, I don't want to always make this assumption, but we're past a lot of the big stuff that we wouldn't know about.
Yeah, that's fair to assume. The worst part of a construction project is getting out of the ground.
Right.
And we're way past that, so.
Yeah, great. Okay, good to hear, thank you.
Yeah, great. Any other questions? We do have a CIP thing in here that require action.
No, so the CIP that is in there is in reference to the upcoming report that Financial Stability Work Group did. We still will need to work on it because we can't narrow down what we're going to put in the 24-25 budget. So that would be something we would be adopting more in line with the budget.
Okay.
But it's something that we need to look at in terms of where we're going between now and 5 years from now.
And I only mention it because Chad is standing here in front of us, so. Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, full faith and credit for the bank's drain. Now, if we don't give it, we can just stop the project right now. That would make a lot of people happy.
That is not true.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Support.
Moved by Augustine, supported by Rogers to move the full faith and credit for the bank's drain to the full board.
I have to take a look. Wait, hold on one second. Ruth Ann?
Ruth Ann?
Sidebar.
We're good.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm just, yeah, okay.
Surprised that we have another?
No.
Oh,
No, that we did it, that we're doing this now when actually we're so far into the project.
well, because they needed more money to, I believe, buy additional, they had to do additional maintenance, and then they also had to buy property.
Yeah.
So they're moving along the process, but they didn't have the bonding to go forward with it.
So we had some bonding already, you think?
Yes, we have.
And this is an additional bonding?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now I'm on it. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, budget amendments. Connie, floor is yours.
Melissa, floor is yours.
So we have quite a few budget amendments this month. So you'll see the very first one is for the American Rescue Plan Act. That is simply a reallocation of the money based on audit recommendations. So that's actually not changing anything at all. It's just how we are accounting for it on our books. And then
That's all, it's kind of in a separate bucket right now?
correct.
Okay, so it's not in the, it's just sitting there in a separate fund?
It's in the American Rescue Plan Act fund, and we were doing it as a transfer, but the auditors have said we should record the federal revenue in the fund that we're expending the funds from. So, complicated.
Lost revenue. So that's what it was in relationship to.
Okay.
So then there is also a budget amendment request for our office for services for our Inflation Reduction Act. Connie, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So we had a meeting with Raymond to discuss filing for the credit that we can get. It's a tax credit through the Department of Treasury, IRS, that we've never filed before. We do not file tax returns other than a 941 as a government entity. So we needed assistance on trying to file and making sure that we were filing the correct paperwork, looking at the credits correctly, identifying them, making sure that we had all the appropriate paperwork to claim them. So in order to do that, we would have to engage an accounting firm. So we did meet with Raymond before the end of the audit process and talk to another tax division for them. We would be looking at approximately 1.3 million. The likelihood of us getting this is huge, but there is a risk that if we didn't get anything, we're just spending $55,000, but we cannot file for it on our own. There's no way to do it. And it's a long process. Ben and I worked on it, Melissa worked on it. The amount of information that we had to provide just to get a quote, I think it was, how many
It was about,
piles of paper?
yeah, it was probably about 22 pages total, because we had to give copies of all of our permits. They had to evaluate whether to do the whole project or each individual array because of how our billing is set up with consumers. So we had
Yeah.
to get them a ton of stuff. And I think they're going to have to do an extension, because technically I think we have to do this in the month of May. So they're going to file an extension so that they can continue the work. But it goes a long way for helping to improve the ROI in terms of when we have a net benefit project, in terms of savings and expenses.
Commissioner Augustine?
Yeah, so just to clarify, this tax credit, which comes in the form of, because we don't pay taxes, comes in the form of cash, correct? In big bags, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Only way we'll take it.
Yeah. But anyways, this is due to the solar project, correct? This is the funding, the tax credit that we had talked about in the past that was going to be coming in from the Inflation Reduction Act, so.
Correct.
I was a little concerned because $55,000 to fill out a tax return just sounds
It is not
ludicrous to
filling-
me, but
Yeah,
I get it now that I'm listening to the different components that have to go into this, I understand.
It was really complex when we first received the information from Johnson Controls. It was, presented to us, it was simple, you just go out and do this, and this is the category you put it under, and you'll file this, but then we sat down with them to get information as far as signed contracts, and we were trying to get when every piece of equipment was put online, and then it was like, well, we can't really advise you. You really should advise, get in touch with. So when we talked to Raymond, our internal auditors, they talked to us and said, they had to deal with it with another company. They were getting on board prior to actually beginning the project. They stopped, started over, redid a lot of things before they actually implemented it, which made it easier for them to file for the credit. So it's a large undertaking. We couldn't do it. There's no way. But it's
Sure.
worth it. I really do think that it's something we would get, but it's all in pieces. Like this piece of equipment may file, we would file separately and get a portion. Then this other piece, we would get a different portion. So it's all based on timing of when it went online.
So are they going to handle, is this going to basically take it all out of your office's hands?
Yeah, we won't do anything
You don't
else.
have
We've-
to do any of that?
We
Okay, that's
provided
good.
them all the documentation, any other questions, should be pretty minimal. And then any big questions would probably go to the vendors.
Now, a question that I have, and this comes straight out of Raymond's audit, number one, have we already contracted with Raymond to provide this service?
That's what we're seeking to do right now. We
So
have not signed on.
Do we need to put this out for bid?
I don't believe that it would be, we don't have to, I will say that, because it's contracting for a service, it's not contracting for a construction project. So no, we don't have to go out for bid. But I don't believe that we would be able to do it with another accounting firm. to be able to draw the data that they already have.
Because that, right, so it will be likely more expensive, and the tax side of Raymond is different than the audit side of Raymond, so we're not dealing with the same people, the same group that, if anybody's concerned about that. But,
You are.
Yeah, no.
oh, did you catch that, Joe? Okay, all right, I think this, so you're under the impression we do not need to put this out, and that's why I bring it up, because
No.
Raymond was critical of us
Under
not
our-
putting it out for bids, so.
Right, under our contractual services, we don't need to do that. We want to for the audit, for purposes of the audit, because you want to make sure that you're assessing the vendor to do your audit. This body should truly be making sure that you have a firm that you are confident in, as well as within my office.
Right.
And then I think part of what you're talking about, but that transition from, with the audit, it was that we switched and started using federal funds on a project, and that triggered where we needed to have the sole sourcing explanation. So this
Right.
isn't triggering the same type of event as kind of what the
Well,
audit.
the concern, Ben, was that we're using federal funds, and would they say, you're using federal, I didn't know where we were if we were gonna put that into that federal, so that was my concern. As long as you guys are
No.
comfortable, I'm fine with it, I just wanted
Those
to verify.
funds, when they do come in, will go straight to the general fund. As again, it's a credit, it's not as like a federal grant, it's a credit, tax credit. So it'll go in, we're gonna expend this money out of fund balance carryover, so it's our expense. That money doesn't come in, we're not gonna use it. It would just be that money coming in and rolling over.
Very good. And while it may be prudent in normal times for us to put it out for bid, because we know that Raymond has all of this information already that nobody has, there's no way anybody's gonna be any cheaper than them anyway. So, okay, thank you.
On top of that is also a timing issue.
Sure, yeah.
Because we do have to file our 990 in a timely fashion.
Right,
So.
right. Okay, thank you.
Joe has a question.
Is this something that we'd be eligible for on a yearly basis?
No, well, it would only be any projects that we were doing that qualified. So any project that we did that would qualify for this credit, then we could do it. So we could continue to do it until 2030,
2032.
2032. They offered this up for anyone that was doing, for any energy efficiency credit. So I will say this, there was discussion, this goes directly into the general fund. There was discussion at one point, if we were going to be doing well financially, that we would take this money, we would then turn it over, do it into another project that we could then get more credit for. I don't believe at this point that we're financially able to make that type of a decision.
So do we think that we're eligible for, you said 1.3 million? Are we looking at that till 2032? Or is that what I understand?
No, we would be looking at, if we're eligible, we would draw that 1.3. It would come in one payment that we would be eligible for.
I know, but we're talking about, I'm asking whether or not we remain eligible to continue to get this kind of a repayment over the next several years or,
Only for, based on projects, any new projects. that come
Yeah,
in.
because it's for the capital equipment, which we've already expended.
okay.
And, I guess the lesson learned, Johnson, the vendor, came to us and they said, you're going to be eligible for a little tax credit on this, and that's kind of how they sold it. It was part of the sale. Okay?
Well,
We all
originally-
remember that. It was like, oh, yeah, that sounds good.
They kind of talked about it later because this came in, so.
It's in between.
And we were not, initially, it was going to be based on anyone who paid taxes, right? But since we're not paying taxes as a government entity, we didn't believe we'd be eligible. Well, then they opened it up, because again, it's about energy efficiency and they're bringing those credits back. So, yeah, if we would have known earlier, we could have engaged Raymond during the audit process to see where we were at, but we didn't know that it was going to be as complicated as it was. Seriously, it was going to be file a form, get the credit, good to go. It was not. It's not even close to that.
It's $55,000, not that.
Yeah, yeah.
Commissioner Augustine.
Well, and thank you, Connie, for bringing that up, because that was a discussion that we were looking at. If we, because again, the investment in the solar was to help us with our energy costs going forward. And so we were looking at the possibility of rolling that credit in, and let's keep leveraging that to improve and reduce our operating costs. However, considering the financial situation that we're looking at, and quite frankly, the fact that we haven't had enough time to see how much benefit we're actually getting from the system too, to make sure that it's the responsible thing to do, we should wait and move that into the general fund. I think that makes sense when we get it. And to Joe's point, I mean, it is, we may not be putting up more solar panels, but there are other projects that could potentially be eligible for this. So I know you guys are going to keep looking to see if there's any projects that we need to do anyways from an infrastructure standpoint that would qualify for this funding going forward, correct?
Yes, and we've had the discussion with Chad as well. So yes, we're well on the way to do that. I will tell you a disappointing thing. We talk about what happened with the going out for bid with Johnson Controls or sole sourcing.
Yeah.
Had we known at the beginning of the project, and this is where the auditors talked to us, we could have changed some things, and depending on how we purchased the projects, where we purchased the projects, and if we were following prevailing wage provisions, which we still may, but they have to investigate that line by line to see if that was handled. We would have been well on the way to actually earning more money. We just don't know that we would get any more than the 1.3.
Right. And this all came again in the middle of the project, not in the middle, but we had already made the determination to move forward. So.
Correct, and it's all in relationship to what happened with COVID and the funding that they were throwing, I don't want to say throwing out, but they were putting it out there to get things moving, and that was just so fast-tracked, especially when you're talking about a government entity that doesn't have a lot of time to focus on all of the items that are involved in all of this the funding and the way to use it, so.
Right. And this is another reason too why it's so important to have our capital improvement plan in place, because if we have these things identified that we need to do over the next 5 to 10 years. It's not just this program, but if there's any other state or federal programs out there that are available to leverage, then maybe something gets moved up on the timeline because now that money is available. And that's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years. There's going to be different programs depending on, who's in office and where they're looking to invest. And so I think, again, it just points to how important that plan is to utilize. Because if you don't know, you got to start pulling things and throwing stuff together, and we're not, as you said, we're not very good at that. I mean, we already have a lot of things going on day to day. So the collective you guys obviously. So, okay, great, thank you.
And following these budget amendments, there's a little piece on this from Raymond in your packet.
Yeah.
Okay, the next ones?
So the next one is a budget amendment from the Sheriff's Department. We had approved in the budget to purchase a trailer for their road crew program, and the trailer ended up costing just over what we had originally budgeted and meant that it needs to be moved to a capital expense. So they do have savings in their supplies in order to cover the additional costs. So. The computer fund and register of deeds tech transfer, Connie, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, simple put, there's I want to say it's a plotter printer that the Register of Deeds office uses. They want to replace the equipment, so Technology Services have worked with them. They use the Deeds Technology Fund, so it's not a general fund increase. And then last is the other fund portion of what we did with the American Rescue Plan Act.
Right, it's the other side of it. Okay.
Correct.
I'll move the budget amendments.
Moved by Augustine, supported by Prolwright.
I do want to mention one other thing. When we were at Health and Human Services, a Mid-State Health Network came in and gave a presentation. Last year, the state changed the allocation of what's called our PA2 funds. It's convention facilities, it's money that the state gets, and then they give a cost sharing. So they changed the distribution, increased the total amount that the county would get, and they did the split where it was previously 50-50 county gets 50, the substance abuse agency receives 50. They change that, the county gets 60, the agency gets 40. So we do not need to make a budget amendment, but I need a motion for us to be able to allocate, if agreed, and it was recommended by Health and Human Services, that we go back to that 50-50 model so that they're utilizing the full benefit of the increase that the state made.
What is the dollar amount for that 10%?
Oh, Melissa,
Ballpark?
I want to say it's about 200,000 total, so it'd be about 100,000 that would go to the agency. I think that's correct. Yeah, I mean, the goal is, obviously, if you're using that, the goal of those funds was to deal with substance abuse. And part of the share that the county gets goes into the general fund, but it also, the general fund contributes to mental health services, also to the health department, so that's where we can keep that money. But the additional funds, and I don't know if Commissioner Brailer wanted to talk about it, those additional funds that the county received, what are we going to use them for? We're also going to be receiving the opioid funding that we'll be able to spend on substance abuse, substance use disorders. So the intent, I don't think, was for the county to keep that money and not use it for substance abuse, even though that would have been the end result. Does that make sense? No?
Commissioner Brailer?
No. Well, I was just going to say, I've been on the various coordinating agencies for quite a while, and the fact of the matter is that there's never been enough money that the coordinating agencies have had to adequately address the substance abuse problem, not only in this area, but throughout. The present coordinating agency now covers, I believe, several, I want to say 21 counties.
It is 21, correct.
It's hell being right all the time.
It-
And it's a minuscule amount of money in relation to the nature of the problem. And so I do think that it's probably prudent to continue the 50-50 split to the extent that it's there. This PA2 money is restricted to being spent in Eaton County. But it's simply, it's not enough. So any reduction would exacerbate I think, the problem here. So I'm comfortable with continuing a 50-50 split at this point in time. Well, I think we had a motion in regards to the budget amendments, and so I'm happy to make it, but
Well, it
we'd have
does-
two motions.
It would be two motions because there's not a budget amendment associated with it. It's just actually allowing us to spend that money. But the budget right now, when we adopted it, we did not know that we had the new split, so it was adopted at a 50-50.
Well, I think technically we need to deal with the first motion that's
Right.
already been made before we
Yeah.
go leaping into the.
Forgot that motion was still hanging out.
I know.
Well, and so,
I thought it-
isn't this for next year's budget, not for this
No, for
year's-
this current year.
Okay.
But it's not an amendment because the money wasn't in there. We had it at 50-50 anyway, so we're not moving money, we're just acknowledging that money is coming to us and we're passing it through, correct?
Yes, because the legislation changed.
Right.
For us to make the decision internally in our office, it shouldn't be done that way. It should be done by the board.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a vote on the budget amendments, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I would move that we continue the split, the 50-50 split with the coordinating agency mid-state in regards to these PA2 substance abuse money.
Moved by Brailer, supported by Lastenheiser. And we can review this again for next year if we
Every year.
if we care during our budget sessions. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We probably already sent them money anyway, right?
No, we haven't. They've only been billing us the 40%. So I will contact them and let them know that they can change their bill.
Okay. All right, now it's time to go into our, the work that we've been doing at the Financial Stability Group for a long time. We're going to discuss that. If we want to take a break, this would be the time to do it. Let's do it.
You're the chairman.
Damn it, I'm going to say, let's take a break.
You don't have many powers, but that's one of them, Blake.
I can make a break. Get back together here. All right, I'll start this just by saying that over the last few years, we have been doing a lot of work at at our group and at the chairman's group. And this is sort of the culmination of that. And I'm glad to see a lot of people in the audience where we can discuss it. And the timeline, we're going to discuss it here and make a determination and make a recommendation that we're going to move on to the full board on Wednesday. And I'm pleased to see that we almost have the entire full board here so that we won't have to go over the whole thing again. So I appreciate all of you that are not on this committee showing up and being here, because it certainly makes it easier. So, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if you would like to take the lead here.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Mulder. So we kind of feel like we've reached the main event of the meeting. I do want to thank, like Chairman said, the commissioners for being here. There's only 3 that couldn't be here. So I'm glad you're here and shows that the interest you have and dedication you have to the county. Also, I want to thank Controller Solby and her staff because they put in a lot of hours, a lot of work in putting all this information together for us. And it was a lot of hours, so thank you. So a little over a year ago, the Financial Stability Work Group started talking about the county's budget issues and what we're going to do about it. And we've had some good discussions, some heated discussions, which is fine. But also, we just spent a lot of hours, sometimes 4 hours, just in those meetings discussing a topic. So. Kind of what we boiled down to, the options we really have is a dedicated millage or a tax limitation, increasing the tax limitation from the 15 mil, what it's been, up to the 18. And so we decided to involve the public in this. So we had some town halls. We had some official town halls where the supervisors and mayors and stuff, we all got together and informed them what was going on, and that was a very good meeting, the first time county's ever done that. Had internal town halls with employees to inform them of the situation and what kind of the direction we were thinking. And then also some public town halls where I think most of you were probably in attendance and saw those. So with all of that and the information that we gathered, we basically came up with the best idea that we would like to bring to you is the idea of increasing the tax limitation. That avenue would address the majority of our issues, our budget issues, or at least address it the best way, as opposed to a dedicated millage. So you received information, I think, from Controller's Office about our report earlier this week, and I hope you all had a chance to read it. So I'm not going to talk too much more because I know that Blake and Terrence and Joe would like to say a few words too. But in front of you, you have a resolution to alter the fixed separate tax limitation and to create a county advisory tax limitation committee. And I just want to let you know that I strongly support this action. I think we need to do something to improve the county's situation here, to improve our staffing, especially public safety and the issues we're having there with staffing. So with that, I'll just hand it over to anyone else that wants to speak, and thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Augustine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chairman Mott, for bringing this to the committee, and thank you for your leadership in this. The way that this has been executed over the last year, in my opinion, has been the way that all government should work. And so we have tried to be as transparent as possible. This is, as Jim has mentioned, this has created a lot of extra work for Controller's Office, which trickles down to everybody everybody at the facility and in the county, because the controller's office works for all of our different departments. And so I'm sure there are some things that got put on the back burner because we were working on this. So again, I want to thank all of the employees here for their patience, for their feedback during this process. There was a great town hall that was had with the employees to help solidify where the committee was looking. So I have a lot to say, but I want to, first of all, kind of focus a little bit on the process of what we're looking at here. And I'm not sure if it's prudent to make a motion for the actual resolution first or to talk to the process first, but I think it's probably prudent to make a motion. So I will go ahead and make a motion that we approve the resolution to alter the fixed separate tax limitation to create a county advisory tax limitation committee.
Support.
Moved by Augustine, supported by Railer, and now we'll have discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the way the process works is statutory. It's nothing that we get to decide on. The language that goes on the ballot is statutory. So that's not something that we decide on either. And quite frankly, the decision to alter the tax limitation is ultimately in the hands of the, as we like to call it here, the CATLIC, but is the County Advisory Tax Limitation Committee. And so there's several reasons why the group ultimately decided that this was the best option to move forward if we are looking at the possibility of adding additional revenues to the county. One of the reasons that has been at the top for us is the fact that there's involvement from a lot of different people in this group. This is not just the county board deciding what the tax limitations and apportionment should be. This is up to a group that is made up of the county treasurer, the chairperson of this committee, the ISD superintendent, and then there's a couple of appointments as well, including one appointed by our probate judge. Then there's going to be an appointment that we're going to make here at the board. And then, of course, the townships will have a spokesperson and a member that they will choose to represent the townships on the committee. So there's going to be a lot of feedback from a lot of different areas in the county, and I think that's important. But ultimately, the main reason why we decided to go this route was really what we're looking for is we're struggling across the board here in the county. We've got hiring issues, as we've talked about over and over again in this committee. We've got deferred maintenance issues that we're facing that we talk about over and over again. And so it's not just one area, it's not just one department that is struggling. And so to look at a specific millage, it was difficult. There was really nowhere to go. And we've been, Jim mentioned that this group, as it sits today, was formed last year, but we've had a financial stability work group of some sort going back to when Commissioner Mulder was the chairperson. I believe, and my dates might be wrong, but it was back around 2018 or so. We had some serious budget discussions because we were looking at potentially I don't believe we were looking at laying anybody off, but I think we were looking at not filling some positions in the sheriff's department. And that led to a lot of discussions, maybe some heated, between the board and the sheriff and others in the county. And ultimately, we were able to preserve those positions in the short run. We all knew, though, that it was not sustainable. And so at the time, I had suggested that Chairman Mulder start some sort of a committee like this, a bipartisan work group that could look at this problem and try to solve this problem, because it was clear at that point in time, long-term, we were looking at a big issue here in the county. So this is the fruition of a lot of years of work. We were stalled, quite frankly, while I was chairperson because of COVID. We were trying to just keep the county open, keep the services to the public, protect our first responders, and do all of those things that everybody else was doing. And there certainly was no room at that point in time to consider any type of adjustment to the millage rate. So unfortunately, that kicked the can down the road a little bit to a certain degree. And then, of course, the federal funds that came from the ARPA helped plug the hole that we had for a couple of years. And that helped us to sustain to get to this point. We had a lot of discussion in our town halls with the local leaders and with citizens about, there was some concern from the public and from the local leaders that we had maybe waited too long to address this. So I want to address this head on and just, again, let everybody know we've seen this issue coming. We've been trying to deal with it over the last decade, pretty much since I've been on this board. But again, as you all know, asking the voters in this county or any county to look at paying more money for services is not something any of us want to do. And so this is, it wasn't an easy decision for us, but at this point in time, we feel there's no other option. What we're looking at are such drastic cuts that we're looking at potentially laying off up to a quarter of our workforce at some point in time when we're looking at these shortfalls. And that doesn't even include additional pay raises to try to attract talent, which we're already struggling with. And so it wouldn't be prudent in my mind, and I think in the financial work group's mind, and I hope in this board's mind, to just make those cuts and not at least go to the public and ask them what type of service they want out of their county government. And that's what I see us doing here. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not wiggling around. I support this and I will be voting for this. But the important thing is that we're giving our people in this town, in this county that we represent, the opportunity to decide if they want to pay for the government that they have now, or if they want to continue paying what they have and see a reduced government, which most certainly will happen. In some form or fashion, it will impact everybody. There will be a lot of people that will be impacted, specifically in the world of public safety, because let's face it, the public safety is a large portion of our budget. And so that's very important to a lot of the people that live in the rural areas of this county. We've already had to make significant reductions in our night service. The sheriff has done a fantastic job and his staff in trying to address the employee shortfall, and bringing Ben on board and having him work with the sheriff's department, in my opinion, has been great and has helped us to get, as he mentioned, a trickle of people in here. I think the sheriff looking at different programs has been definitely something that is needed, and I appreciate that as well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this problem will not be addressed without additional revenues. And so that's what we're asking the board to do today, is to essentially establish the County Advisory Tax Limitation Committee and let that group come back to us with a recommendation. The way the statute reads, there are several, as I ran through the appointments, the county board will get one appointment of a citizen that I believe we'll discuss later. But this process has to be followed in a specific way. And so that's what we're doing today, is we're kicking the process off by passing this resolution onto the full board and hopefully passing the resolution on Wednesday at the full board. Then that will give the township the ability to select their representative, and of course our probate judge the opportunity to select her representative on this committee. And then they will have 10 days from the time that that last person is selected to come up with a recommendation, bring that back to this board, and this board then has to take action on what is recommended. So understand, this resolution to appoint this committee and establish this committee is essentially the resolution to say, okay, Tax Limitation Committee, tell us what you think that we should do. They come back to us, we have to put what they come back to us on the ballot. Because of the timing, it looks like it will be on the November ballot of this year.
And just to make that clear, it's this next Wednesday is sort of the last say that we've got on this, because the Tax Limitation Board is, what they decide will be final for this, okay? It's one of those instances where we as the county board really don't have the final say. We're doing the final say on Wednesday by appointing this board, so.
That's correct.
Before Commissioner DeRosa, do you have anything to say?
I was going to wait for Brian, but sure. It's been referenced that there have been meetings prior to what Chairman Mott put together a year ago. I think Roger Aiken, who was the finance chair for quite a while here, initiated some meetings back in 2016-17, in which myself and Commissioner Augustine participated. So the two of us have been involved in these conversations for 8 years. And I think I can sum it up that all of the people over the years who participated in these discussions recognize that the county was in a perilous place in terms of revenue in order to simply continue what we were doing. There was a certain amount of reluctance to actually go out and find some way to raise revenue. A lot of discussions about how we could stay within the amounts of revenue that we were projecting. But quite frankly, the numbers have simply gotten too high. And it's not a realistic, I think, situation where cuts in and of themselves are going to solve the problem. You have a financial stability report. The first page of the report shows preliminary estimations in regards to revenue as opposed to expenses to just continue what we're doing today. That's no new raises. That's, not taking care of the infrastructure needs that we know are out there and which are detailed in this report. And it looks like for the 24-25 budget, these numbers would indicate that we're close. We'll be at our top revenue moment, we'll still be about $1.3 million, $1.5 million short. So we're close. But I've had some conversations with the controller's office, and we had requests that exceeded our projected revenue by about 10 million. They've done a job, as they have done for years, of whittling that back, but it's still, there's a gap there that's significantly more than 1.5 million. And that's, again, just to continue what we're doing today. And what we hear in meeting after meeting of this committee and at the board level, and even some of the other committees that I'm privileged to serve on, is that what we're doing today isn't going to work. So the reality, if you look at that graph, even if we turn out to be close for this next fiscal year, we're definitely not close for 25, 26, and we are clearly not close for 26 and 27. So we have to make an adjustment. We have to make a change. And, there is reference to going to the voters and letting them decide, and ultimately that's what should happen. But they get to decide how much of a service they want from county government. But I think that the reality is that everyone is going to be pretty surprised at the extent to which those services would be severely curtailed. And it would be really all of the above. We've talked about the fact that it would probably require that the county would not be open 5 days a week. It certainly wouldn't be open from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night. Maybe it's open every morning, maybe it's open 3 days a week, maybe it's open 2. We would have a reduced staff across the board. That's somebody telling me to stop. Okay, obviously, it's probably Connie, but as usual, I will ignore. And, but, even if we went to 3 days a week, even if we went to 2 full days, 5 days, half a day, even if we reduce the staff, here's the reality. The moment we start reducing the staff, either we're going to have to pay them substantially more than we're paying them now, the ones that we keep, or everybody's going to leave. They're going to be out the door. The idea that we would go to 3 days a week as an example and pay everybody essentially for 3 days a week so that the people who stayed would take a significant pay cut is absurd. We would have to pay them for a 40-hour week. And we would have to pay them more than we're paying them now. Just reality. So, there isn't a whole lot of other options. And the best way to address this, and there have been some people on this board who have been saying this for years, that we need to bring in more revenue to meet our needs. The best way, I think, to address this problem is by looking at the tax limitation, establishing this board, and going to the voters, hopefully, because it would be up to the board, the tax limitation board that would be constituted, going to the voters in November and saying, here's where we are. I do want to acknowledge all of the work that the controller and her staff have done. I think, they have put a lot of time in. The person that we hired in regards to communications has certainly done a lot of work, along with the other people on Connie's staff, in putting the history together, in putting together what this county government does do. I think one of the things that, has been a reality in the past is that there's not a lot of people who understand just how much county government touches their lives or potentially touches their lives, and how much is really at stake. And I think that's also part of the narrative that we, as commissioners, not only support this today and support this next Wednesday, but in going out to the public, that's part of the narrative that we have a responsibility as well to tell people exactly what is at stake. And so I am obviously supportive of this. I've been working on this for a very long time. It's time to take action. Thank you.
And I'll only add a couple words. Pretty much all has been said, but, this has been essentially a slow-motion train wreck for a long time, and people are saying, well, why didn't you do something before? Well, we were looking at it, and we didn't have the gumption sometimes 10 years ago to do anything. And now it's necessary. I was on this board back in the recession in 2008, and it was horrific. We did a lot of layoffs. We had to cut back, same situation. Now the economy came back and recovered a little bit. We never came back to the full staffing that we had previous to that, but we had gone through and maybe that's why when we started this group, and I was the chair, we knew that we had financial issues, and we hesitated. The previous controller and Connie were involved in the financial stability work at that time. This has not been something that we put off. And I guess I blame myself and some of the group that we didn't act earlier, and then, because we were hesitant. We didn't want to make the hard choice, and we moved on, and then COVID came, and frankly, the time is here now. We really don't have a choice, and where we're at, sadly, it is what it is. So we'll be supportive. It's really critical that we get out there and engage the community in this process. We have had a couple of attempts to do Headley rollbacks here at the county, and the county board went out and said, let's do a Headley rollback. And 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and we put it on the resolution on the ballot, and they were rejected. But there was no support from this board and from the membership or from the county employees. Everyone just threw it out there, hoping it would pass, really without engaging our community. And really, it is about our community. And so shame on us back when we might have changed the trajectory a little bit, 15 years ago. We didn't do it. We didn't pass those rollbacks, and understand that tiny incremental changes at one point in time have a massive effect years down the road. And that's sort of the nature of the projections. So we've been watching this. We know it's there, and now the rubber is meeting the road, and we have to make some hard decisions. So that's where we're at today. Comments? Commissioner DeRosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've been talking about an additional 3 mills to add to our 15. Do we have a figure for what that 3 mills would?
Well, to start with, that may or may not be the number. It's going to have to come out of the,
But that's
Out
a
of the group.
maximum number, correct?
correct.
All right, what would that? 12 million. Roughly 12 million?
Each mill is about 4 million.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you. I've been asked that question. The other question I've been asked is the length of this proposed millage increase.
And I would answer that it's not a millage increase as such. It is the standard rate that the county would charge, and each year that would be decided by this board. So essentially, all millages, when the renewal comes up, this board decides if they're going to renew them, or if they want at any particular time to roll an existing millage back, they have the choice to do that. So this would be the same that way. This particular board, on an annual, I'm going to say on an annual, will make the decision as to how much we're going to levy on the voters.
Thank you for answering that question. I had a discussion with Ben and Logan the other day while I was in here and asked Logan what it costs the county, an estimated cost per day. And he told me roughly $133,000 per day to operate our county. It's a number I had never even considered. So it's information going forward. Thank you.
We have a couple of outside comments that wanted, Jim, you want to start?
Yeah, so I got a correspondence this morning from Delta Township Clerk Mary Clark. I just want to read this to the board. So she said, "I support the movement to increase the county levy and look forward to the county addressing the legacy costs and salary differences to be able to compete with other jurisdictions for staffing our law enforcement needs." So I just want to thank Mary for that. We had a meeting a few weeks ago, and she reached out because she wanted more information and wanted to know the details. And after talking, she saw the need and the benefits of it. So I appreciate her support.
Commissioner Holmes?
Yeah, thank you. Now, comments I've heard in relation, you're talking about getting the message out to the people. What I've read, one comment was they're threatening us, and I think it needs to be a different word. That's how they perceive it, that we got to do these things, so that's a threat. And I don't see it as a threat. It's just reality. And I'm trying to think in my own mind how you'd communicate that. The other thing is, I know is out there, as people see, well, these unfilled positions have been in the budget. So where did that money go? And I don't think they understand that the money wasn't there. A budget doesn't give you the money, it tells you where you spend what you do have, and if you don't have it. So those 2 points, I think, reaching out to community is be important, try to keep in mind as we're out there. So that.
And I think the perception of the county threatening, I think that's important to talk about a little bit. I mean, quite honestly, it's really easy to say, you better get behind this or else you're going to lose this many deputies. I mean, it's really easy to say that, but that's not true. I mean, there could be truth to it, but we're not making any projections of how we're going to do this or what will happen if we don't have the money. What we're doing is saying that a lot of things are going to change, and it isn't this board that'll make those decisions, or this sheriff. It's going to happen in the next cycle, and we're not in a position to start making dire call. The situation is dire, but we're not going to start picking out certain employees. We're going to say, you're going to lose your job. That's not the way that this is going to work. We know the shortfall is there, and if we don't have the money, there are going to be drastic changes. Drastic changes. I'm not going to predict what those are going to be. Some of them are obvious, but to go out there and threaten, that's not what this is about. We're not going to say you're going to be in dire straits and your grandmother's going to be living in fear because if you don't pass this millage. That's not the way this is going to happen. It has to be We need to educate, we need to let people know what the county does.
Right.
And that's what this is about. It's building up the county and making sure that people know that we serve a purpose and that every citizen in this county benefits from our the service. And frankly, if they don't realize the benefit is there until they need it. When all of a sudden they need something from the county and that benefit isn't there anymore, they're going to miss it. But sometimes people don't know what they don't know. So, yeah, thanks for the comment. Commissioner Brailer?
Thank you. I don't think there's any effort here to threaten anyone. I think what we have to be realistic about is that we start from a base of two realities. The first is that we are not allowed to run a deficit budget. So we can only budget, we have to be able to, we can only budget what we have. That's just reality. So we can't do deficit spending. And the second thing is that the county is required by both the Constitution and state law to certain functions. So if we have a revenue shortfall, we have to look first to budgeting within our means. And secondly, we have to prioritize those things that we are required to do by the Constitution and by the state statute. There are any number of different programs and things that this county has done over the years and continues to do, which are not required functions. And so, it would be a situation where the board that would be constituted at that moment, and certainly we would be the ones that are going to be dealing with the 24 and 25 budget. But they would have to start from that premise. How much money do we have? What are we required to do? And then whatever, if anything is left, what more we can do. And so it's not a threat. These are the responsibilities we have. We cannot go into deficit spending, and we have certain requirements that are placed upon us by the state and the Constitution. And then everything else, we'd have to look at what we could do. And that's just the reality that we face on a regular basis, but certainly that we would face if we were facing a shortfall between what's needed and what's available.
Commissioner Mudry?
Although I'm not on this committee, this week when the financial stability report was given to me by Mr. Dawson, I decided I'm going to read it. I'm going to take the time and I'm going to read it right now because I knew it was coming down the road. And as I was reading it, I had this feeling like I was dealing with financial trouble of a family member or a friend. I've had this feeling before when I've had to listen to somebody else's problems. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I take this very personally, and I feel that the community is a family, and we're going to do everything we can to help that family member out. Thank you.
Do we want any input from any department heads? Are we good with, what are your feelings here at this group? We have a motion on the floor, and we would be essentially moving our recommendation to the full board on Wednesday.
That's fine.
Okay? Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
I want to thank all of you other commissioners who haven't been participating in the Finance Stability Committee for your support today, and hopefully your continued support throughout this process. Thank you.
Now, involved with the process, this group, we need to recommend a citizen to the advisory board. And we've come up with a person and talked with a person that would be interested. This would be just a regular citizen, which is one of the members. And Terrence, you have an idea who this might be?
Yes, I would move that the county board appoint Roger Eakin of Windsor Township to the Tax Allocation Committee.
I support.
And a little history, Roger was the Ways and Means Chair while I was the board chair, and he was involved in this financial stability group from the onset. And he used to sit up here where I'm sitting this very moment, and he'd lean back and he'd say, "This county is in really a bad shape. You got to understand it." Right? And this was 10 years ago, if not longer. And I think he saw the numbers, he sat and looked at them, and he realized that we are in an unsustainable spot. And I think he'd be a good person to be involved in this next series of meetings. So I appreciate that nomination. Any questions or comments about that?
Just one quick comment. Sorry, I can't help it. Well, to me, it's really important. I've been on this board for 12 years and seen a lot, and there's been a lot of, political back and forth, brinksmanship. There's been a lot of, ridiculous resolutions on both sides, political stuff. That happens, right? But we have done, in my mind, this body that we have established right now has worked together in a bipartisan way to move this county forward on the things that matter. And I appreciate that, and that's true for Roger when Roger was here. Roger and I obviously didn't agree on a lot of policy issues, but we both are very passionate about the county and the things that the county does for the residents. And so I just want to, again, point out, and that's why me, as a Democrat, wants to appoint a Republican, it's important. This has been important to us that this has been done in a bipartisan way. And I anticipate that it will continue to be done that way. Because whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, if you need the county for something and it's not there, you're going to feel it. And so, to me, it's important that we've done this in a bipartisan way. We continue to do that. I hope that we have 15 votes in favor of this on Wednesday. I hope that everything is unanimous. I always hope that everything's unanimous. Those of you around this table know that when I was chair, I would call everybody before every vote and try to get everything to be 15-0. Hardly ever was, but that's important, and I don't want to let that slide. And I think, again, the way that Chairman Mott has handled this, and Chairman Mulder before him, and even Chairman Whittam before him, has been important to this process. And it's been a very important piece, because Blake mentioned it earlier. There's been a lot of trepidation in the past to move forward with any type of a tax increase for our residents on this board, not just from Republicans, from Democrats as well, from all of us. And so for us to make this move and to go forward, I hope this shows the residents of this county that this is not a willy-nilly decision. This is not a, tax and spend liberal, going out trying to push an agenda on the county. This is essentially a bipartisan group of county commissioners and, quite frankly, county elected officials that, have met with us, the treasurer, the prosecutor, the sheriff, the drain commission. We've had several discussions with all of those elected officials as well. And it's been, in the times that we're in all of the partisanship that happens at all of the levels, it has been a breath of fresh air to come, even though sometimes they are 4 to 6 hour meetings with the work group. It really has restored my confidence in our system. So I just wanted to point that out and bring that to the forefront, because I think it's important to understand that this is a true solution that is being brought to you by a group of bipartisan people. Thank you.
And I would piggyback on that. We're going into another election cycle, and the sad part is, in some ways, that this resolution, or that this what we're discussing right now will be on the same ballot as everybody in this room. and all the positions we have here. Yeah, yeah. And you know what? It's real easy to start throwing stones when you're on the outside and say, oh, you just want to tax us. You know, really, we understand. We've been looking at this in a bipartisan way, and this is a solution that really is necessary, and we're doing it under that understanding. And there's always going to be naysayers. That's politics. It gets ugly. Things are said. But this has all been done in the calm of the day with discussing it, looking at all different options, looking at all sides, gathering information. This isn't a quick decision on our part, and it's one that was not political. You know, again, Democrat, Republican, we have a lot of disagreements, and there's a lot of things that we'll never come together on because we don't see the world, have the same worldview. But in this particular issue, it wasn't political. We got into the nuts and the bolts and the reality of the finances of this county, and that's all we're looking at. And we're looking at solution. And so this is, we can't emphasize that enough. When this election comes in November, everybody that is out there on the stump talking, I hope, will go to their representatives and their neighbors and their friends, and when it comes to this issue, they're gonna say, you know what? I don't like my taxes increased, but sometimes it's necessary, and this is a place where it's not wasted money. This is a place where the benefit is to every citizen in Eaton County. And so it's critical that we, at this table, in this circle, and get out there and work toward this result. So we're getting off course. We have a motion on the floor. Yeah, it is. We got a motion on the floor to put Roger Eakin on this board. Any other questions about that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. Commissioner DeRosa?
Assuming that Mr. Eakin has been contacted and he's willing to serve.
He is.
All right, thank you.
And we've got kind of a tight timeline here, and we have to get all of the township supervisors on board, and they have to elect somebody, and, you know, we're kind of working backwards from when we had to have all this stuff done, but we're at a point now where we've got a timeline to work through, and each group has to do their work, and things have to be presented to this board on the Wednesday nights so that we can maintain the necessary timing for this proposal. So, Commissioner Rogers?
Yes, in the three jurisdictions that I represent, I've been to two of the meetings, my two townships this month, and they know exactly where I stand, that this is needed. And I think it's very important. I know it's election year, but it is needed. It's not that we want it, I mean, just for surplus, it's needed. And we should get out and support it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. Any other comments or things on this one? Thank you. Let's move on. Miscellaneous.
There is none.
Bills.
Move that we pay him. Support.
Braille DeRosa, pay the bills. Budget. Oh, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
You got a golf?
Yeah, well, you
time
know.
to do? Yeah.
Nice day out there.
All right.
Okay, let's talk about budget hearings and budget. Connie,
Sure.
let me get up there first here.
Yeah, so with respect to the budget, last month, we were at revenues or expenses over revenues of roughly 10 million. After meeting with departments and having what I would call easy discussions in terms of what their budget looked like, Melissa was able to work with them to whittle it down. We also had changes in staffing, which resulted in whether it was benefit changes or new hires coming in at a lesser pay. We were able to reduce the budget by close to 2 million, and then our revenue projections, based on Melissa evaluating those over the last several years and coming up with a more realistic number, turned to $200,000 less than what was initially projected. So we still, obviously, based on those numbers, you're talking over $8 million that we would be more expenses than revenues, which is significant. So the report that you saw earlier was based on projections that we'd used 5 years previous to show kind of a consistent carry forward, going along normal lines, not considering what's occurred between 22, 23, 23, 24, and now 24, 25 that we're looking at. So with that, in order to balance this budget, number one, it's going to take a lot of work, so roll up your sleeves. It's going to take some difficult discussions in terms of with departments and saying, we'll have to eliminate this, that, or the other thing, and a lot of the things that we would have to eliminate would probably impact operations. Could result in not filling positions, because as Commissioner Brailer said before, we cannot adopt a budget that is not balanced. And we cannot rely on a fund balance or any other revenue coming in from federal government to balance this budget. So we'll start diving in even deeper than we have right now. We'll work with departments and basically talk to them about what we can't do. I've said since the beginning of this year in the budget process that the one thing that I won't do and our administration won't do is to recommend a budget to the Board of Commissioners that does not include pay increases for all employees. So we're going to have 5 more union contracts that we have to settle, and then we have our general employees to balance this again on the backs of employees, which we've all said here, we've done for years, whether it's in benefit cuts or position cuts or not paying, the wages that we really need to pay. We're not going to recommend that. So we're going to come back to you because this budget shows no increases other than the 2 bargaining units that we've adopted. So it's going to look worse than it does today. So we'll be talking about ways that we can fill the holes. We'll be talking about looking at between now and July, projecting what the savings is, and this is significant. Use the Sheriff's Department and the Prosecutor's Office of positions that we have not filled. You saw the positions that you just recommended to approve. Those are all resulting in savings within the general fund for this year. So we would know by that time that we would have an additional increase to the fund balance. What that doesn't allow us to do is to balance the budget on whatever that fund balance increase is, because we have to use the money that we projected for 23-24 and the 22-23 ending fund balance in order to pass the budget. What it would tell you is that you would have that money going forward where you could amend the budget, but there's still a hole they have to fill. And there'll be a lot of discussions. We don't have to go that deep today because it'll be a lot of discussions with the Financial Stability Work Group in the initial phases. We'll start talking about that in June when when we met yesterday. And again this morning, we had a lot of discussions on ways that we can do that, but we need to make sure that everybody understands and can vet that out. And through the Financial Stability Work Group, I think Chairman Mott said, we had a lot of heated discussions. We did. And I think I said in one of the work groups in prior years, we met and it was frustrating. I mean, I would walk away as, just a deputy. I would walk away and say, well, you're not just a deputy, just so I say that. You have a lot of input, a lot of feedback.
I have a sticker.
Yeah. But I would walk away frustrated because we didn't really get anywhere, but there wasn't a lot of places to go at that time. this year, I think the leadership in that group was really strong and really struggling back and forth as to what was needed. So a lot of difficult decisions were made there that we'll continue to do in the budget process. You'll do it here, and then the board will do it. But I think having every commissioner here today that we do, you're hearing all of this, you know it's gonna be a tough year. So get ready. But other than that, I'm not gonna go into a look at each of the line items because we're not at a point where it really matters. I can't pick one line item. I can't pick personnel. I can't pick anything that we can cut that will work today. Did I cover everything? Ben, Melissa?
Nailed it.
Nailed it? Thank you.
And traditionally, we're starting the process. Things are going to form and shape a little bit as the time goes on, and Connie and Melissa will put together some different options for us, and the department heads have been involved and will be involved. This is a collaborative process, budgeting, and it always has been, and it will continue to be, and we're getting into the real meat and potatoes of it over the next month or two. So, again, you're all invited to the meetings and the extra meetings that we're going to have, so.
And contacting my office at any time. We, as a group, work together on a daily basis through the process of creating the report that you worked on with the Financial Stability Work Group. We've collaborated together. I think that's important because we want everyone within administration to know where we're at. So any one person in that office, if the others aren't here, knows what's going on, and we're at that point. So you can rely on us for any information that you need.
Okay, thank you. Now is an opportunity for limited public comment. A good time to voice what you think. Please.
Morning. My name is Martha Richard. I am the CEO and Administrator for Eaton County Health and Rehab. We provide long-term care and short-term care and outpatient services to Eaton County residents. So I just want to stand here today and say that I support the resolution. While the facility is self-sufficient, if we were not self-sufficient, we would be reliant on the county. In fact, the county had to help us out over the last year when we had cash flow issues. If the county did not do that, we would have had to decrease our services to Eaton County residents. So I think it's really important that the community understands that Eaton County Health and Rehab is part of the county, and any changes to the county could impact our facility and the seniors that we care for. We have 355 employees. We care for, about 120 residents per day. That's roughly 35,000 people a year. So that's not just long-term, that's short-term care as well. So we have many residents coming to us and returning home. And if we didn't have cash flow and the county couldn't support us, we would also have to reduce our services. And we are projecting that we will have cash flow issues in the coming years. So I just want to say thank you for all of your hard work. And please share all of this information with our community so that everyone knows who this impacts and how far-reaching it really is. So,
Thank you, Martha.
thank you so much.
And this is public comment, but for the rest of you, Martha she's across the parking lot from us, and essentially, legislatively and realistically, they are part of county government. And so it's, she's not someone that's, across the county that's got some private care facility. She is, her facility is part of this government, in this county, so, thank you. About Martha? Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's important, and thank you for your comments, that, this doesn't just touch the complex here, but it has the potential to be a wider circumstance. And I think we should point out that the medical care facility is really a crown jewel of this county. And Martha and her staff have done a wonderful job over the years and are really, I think, a 5-star rating or whatever. And it would be really, really unfortunate for a lot of the residents that we have to see any change in that in the medical care facility. So this is a bigger issue potentially than just right here. And I appreciate Martha's comments this morning. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Seeing that, thank you. And we're going to go into closed session here. So I appreciate all of your being here and thank you so very much for attending.
I guess since Connie gave me the cheat sheet this morning, that's my cue to move to enter into closed session under section 15.268, section 8E of the Open Meetings Act to discuss trial and settlement strategy in connection with pending litigation in the matter of case number 121 CV 731, Damian Shopper versus Rick Sullivan et al. And I would so move.
Support. Moved by Brailer, supported by DeRosa. Oh, we need a roll call for this. Supported by DeRosa. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Augustine?
Yes.
Commissioner Prolwright? Yes. Commissioner Brailer?
Yes.
Commissioner DeRosa?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson-Heiser? That's me, yeah. Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you for your comments.
She said yes.
Oh, sorry. It's not your fault. It's Terrence's fault. But do you want to go into closed session? You guys
Yes,
ready?
sir.
There we go.
Commissioner Paul?
Sorry, Barbara.
It's quite all right.
Okay. Open session, give a second for the air to be on. Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we accept legal counsel's recommendation.
Support. August, I thought you had like something written down that you had to read.
I did, I have accept
what it
legal
is?
counsel's recommendation.
You wrote that
Did I
down
miss
for him.
something? Do I need something more?
Okay, moved by Augustine, supported.
The only cheat sheet I've got is to
Wasserheiser.
get us into closed session.
He had the hard cheat sheet. You had a pretty easy one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the only other question would be, do you want Thomas to come back to the full board to go through all of this?
I was actually thinking about that. I'm like, well, at least everybody's here, but there are 3 commissioners who aren't here, and if they have questions, I don't know how we would handle that, would be my only concern. But I don't suspect that he would need to be. I mean, we've got 12 votes, I suppose, so.
Okay, we just
if they-
can't discuss or we wouldn't be able to go into the details of the case.
Yeah, we can't go without our counsel here, right? Yeah.
No, so I
should-
don't want to go into closed session in the full board for something that would be similar to what we just went through.
It's a we're making a decision.
It's a financial decision from Ways and Means, and Ways and Means recommends that.
Well, that's quite frankly, that's up to the chairperson, or that's not up to me, but I.
Correct. I mean, that's a good question, but the chairperson left us.
Well, it is on the board agenda right now, so I can talk with Chairman Mott about that.
Heavy as the crown.
I don't know why we need to go into closed session for three commissioners who couldn't be here today for $6,000. I mean, that's.
Well, but
No.
to that point, I mean, the members of Ways and Means were able to vote on it. The other members not on Ways and Means weren't able to vote on it. So it's just information in that regard. So, but I agree with Joe. I don't think it's necessary to go closed session, but I guess we'll let that be addressed at our commissioners meeting.
Okay. So we'll determine that then. And at this point, anything else? We're adjourned.
Just Brian.